Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the return of our Facebook Live series. I took a pause a fortnight ago because of the Three Principles conference that was online last week in the UK, and including my beautiful guest Liliana today. There was many speakers in it, so I didn't hassle anybody to fit places into their diary and stuff. So, and it's starting to get a little bit more difficult now that people are getting back to work and coaches are busy and teachers like yourself, Liliana, are all very busy. So we'll be reducing the amount of, unfortunately, we'll have to reduce them down so we can space out everybody. But anyway, my name is Billy Mann, and today my special guest is the wonderful Liliana Bellini, who's somebody only very recently has come into my world and that I've become aware of her work and her contribution to the world that she's in. And I put up in the bio today where she's working and what she's up to at the moment. But I'm going to invite her to introduce herself and speak about it because she's a spectacular career. She's a beautiful woman, and I'm deeply honoured, Liliana, that you took some time out today to join me. So welcome, and I'll let you introduce yourself and what you're up to, and we'll go from there.
Well, Billy, thank you so much for having me. And I kid you not, I was very excited, and I've been watching what you're doing with this series, and I absolutely love the feeling that you bring. And in fact, I was like in the park this morning and I was running, and I felt excited because it felt a bit like you invited me to a barbecue in your garden. You know, it didn't feel like I was all asked to speak, you know, in front of people or, you know, like social media. And I thought I'm going to go along and meet up with him in his garden, and we're going to have a chat and a barbecue, maybe a beer. That's how I felt.
Without the burnt meat.
And meet your family and all that. And it's funny because the last talk I did was at the conference, and I have to say it was a different feeling for me because it felt a bit like going to the dentist to have an extraction, because I was it's an amazing, stunning, beautiful event. And with amazing speakers and people I have a lot of respect and love for. But I had all this stuff going on in my head. And so it's funny what we do, isn't it? And how powerful our thinking can be, you know, and how we end up missing out a bit on the barbecue experience, isn't it?
It's so true.
So I was like, no. Today I'm going to go to the barbecue. I'm not going to, you know, to the dentist, if it makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense.
And I have to ask you for a favor. And that is, you can please ask me to slow down if I go too fast or if I get too excited, or because that can come through, and then I wanna say a lot, and I'm passionate, and the Italian in me comes.
Hey,
through.
I come with a sound warning too. I have to say that to people, that it starts to fall out of my mouth, and I can't get it out fast enough.
There you are.
So I totally get that. So
that's what happens to me.
That's fair enough. So if I do it or you do it, we give each other permission to say, "Oh, easy." You know what I mean? Subtitles are switched off.
It's a deal. It's a deal because it's you know, it is what it is, and we're gonna have a good time anyway, isn't it?
Isn't that the joy of passion?
That's right.
It's the joy of passion. You know, it's the joy of such a wonderful gift. So what are you up to at the moment, Liliana? Yeah.
I think I'd like to give you an idea very quickly on how I get to be here.
Yeah, beautiful.
Is that okay?
Delighted.
So at least they have a sense of who don't know me, have a sense, and you don't know me very well. We connect very easily. So I guess you know, I do a lot of work now in the Three Principles. A Three Principle work I do, and I am passionate about community work and working with marginalized communities, and I've done a lot of work in prisons for Beyond Recovery and for a Slice of Happiness. So you put that in the bio, yeah. But why do I do this? You know, and why, after doing so many things, I've kind of settled in what I'm doing now, and in the simplicity and the beauty of it. It's because obviously my life changed and became easier, much easier, and I on every level, every area of my life was touched by this simple understanding, and everything became easier. Relationships, work, my own, relationship with myself, most of all, really, with my children, with my friends, with everything, with my thinking. And the discomfort that I was so used to living in kind of fell away. Not completely, or I go in and out of that, but it's so much easier to navigate life now. So I'm so grateful. So I do it because of that, and also because I have had so much evidence of this through the work I do. I've been doing it for 6 years now, of this being so impactful, so powerful, so life-changing in the most gentle, loving, and transformative way. So I've seen many people change. I think you had David Saunders on one of you. So that's,
And I'm hoping to arrange to interview Lisa now as well.
Yeah,
that's
gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
So, people like that wake up to their true selves and kind of fall out of the stories they've been living in, and the thinking, what they thought about themselves to be possible or to be true. And I can't think of anything better than do than work, if we can call it work, and witnessing.
You're working very hard now. Stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
You're working fierce out.
And witnessing this, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and how kind of this, the truth in this takes care of my insecurities enough for me to do it. So I still have my insecurities about what I say, how I show up. But before, that used to be a big deal. And it would stop me from sharing something which I thought was helpful. But when I came across this, I dropped into something deeper and true and universal for everyone. And that sustains me and holds me even when I beat myself up because I think I'm not grounded enough, I don't know enough, all that kind of narrative that we have and we are so used to. And, I always wake up and from that kind of those trips, self-obsessing trips, and think, all right, I can be human, I can have all of that, but the message is more important than me. What I have to share, which is so simple, and I didn't make it up. I didn't come up with it. It's just the truth, the fundamental truth. It's so simple, it's so true, it's so fundamental that I can try and talk about that, and that will take care of things for me. So I can't seem to be able to stop because, and my insecurities can't, they have a go at stopping me, but they can't quite succeed. So so that's a bit of a feel for why I do it and where I'm at. And I came from certain important things happened in my life, which were determining things in terms of direction. And I had 2 breakdowns, one when I was 25 and one when I was 45, 20 years apart. And especially the one at 45, I didn't think I was going to come back from that, because it was so dark. It was so dark, and I was so scared that I thought I couldn't possibly, you know, survive. You know, it was too frightening. So these two things, and in between the first one and the second one, I lost someone very close. This is my stepson, my husband's son, beautiful, talented young man who had, you know, he was in a lot of mental emotional pain. So he tried to, you know, obviously have relief from using, and then he had more kind of serious mental health issues, and then he found himself in custody in prison, and he took his own life in prison. So that was in between my two breakdowns, and that was the materialization of the most frightening and dark thing that I could have thought. And you know, we had other children, and we were a very close family, and someone peeping in. But that kind of, that shook me deeply, and it kind of threw me out of what I thought I knew about life, and it made me reconsider everything, and so I got into supporting my family through that, because obviously, you know, his father and his brothers and sister. But also I started gradually to feel like I've got to do something about this. You know, I've got to find a way to help people not to suffer so much, and help myself, because the memory of that first breakdown was still with me, you know, and I was scared that you know, something like that would happen to my kids, our kids and my loved ones. And so through the shock and the pain, I started to open up and look and explore things that could help. So I trained in various different things, and then I settled on complementary medicine, a whole complete system of homeopathy, and I did that for many years. And but all along, I was looking outside myself. I was appreciating that we had a self-adjusting, self-healing system within us that could heal our bodies.
Which is the core of homeopathy, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like, encourage the body to heal itself.
That's right. And but I was still, I still felt that there was something missing in what I was offering and what I was seeing, but I didn't know what it was. And so trained in many other things and did them alongside homeopathy, and then something that I didn't expect happened, and it was I fell into a really deep depression and a breakdown. Something happened, and what I did with it, with my mind, was actually what made me break down so badly. You know, there were things on the outside, but I was completely not aware of how everything that I was experiencing, it was my own creation, my mind, you know, although there were things on the outside.
Yeah.
So I didn't know this. See, with all those years of training, I still didn't know that it was an inside-out job, 100%.
Yeah, reality had its narrative, and you had yours, and never the twain shall meet.
That's right. And so I went through that, thinking at times, I can't come out of this ever again. And I thought I was going to check out because it was so bad. And I had all the thinking about, how did that happen to me after all those years of training? How is it that with everything I've learned, I can't help myself right now? And there was a missing link between what was happening on the outside and my experience, there was something I wasn't seeing. So by the grace of love and God, I the three principles understanding was kind of waiting for me, you know, as I was coming out, crawling out my way out of that somehow, you know. And then I started to look into it, and it made total sense quite quickly. It's as if I was just like a tiny inch away from seeing it throughout those years, or seeing it enough, because I still haven't seen much of it, and you know, it's like there's so much more, but enough to wake up from the kind of for the illusory nature of the whole thing, you know. And so I had my first insights into it, and they were life-saving, you know, because they explained everything, and they gave me answers to questions I didn't even know I had, you know. David Saunders always say that, actually, and it's true. It happened to me as well. And it explained the darkness and the light, and it explained the whole functioning of my mind. But also they gave me a stronger sense and a deeper appreciation of my true nature, which I kind of already had I knew that there was that deeper me, that deeper wisdom about me and about everyone. But I understood what that was, you know, more in depth and with more appreciation.
Yes.
So that was, after that, everything kind of changed in the most beautiful, gentle, natural way, you know. Really,
it does.
It did. And so I remember being in a prison when Kita died, and trying, I had raised the money to open up a day center in Wandsworth prison. That's where he died. And for guys...
Were you, at this stage, were you working through the prison? This was actually in between. Gotcha.
Yes, that's
in
right.
The middle period. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
After Kita died, his grandmother was very involved and wanted to do something that would, make a difference to young men like him who are in custody. And so with her and with my stepdaughter, we kind of did different things. But I raised the money, and there was this center that was opened up in Wandsworth Prison. And I remember going to the opening, and this group of guys were performing different things. So that was a room and a space for them to meet and be creative. So I went to the opening, and I was blown away by their creativity, their resilience, the way they showed up with such, you know, they were so open and giving, and I was blown away. And I thought, I'd love to do more, but I thought, I haven't got anything else left to give after because I'm not qualified psychologist. I'm not, I thought. So it was a nice experience, and I kind of left it behind, thinking that I had nothing else to give. And then after coming across the principles, and I met Jacqueline on One Thought Institute, and I knew what she was doing. I kind of find myself, without calculation or like planning, or naturally, I found myself in prisons again. But this time it was a completely different feeling. I thought, because of the understanding, I thought all I need to do is to show up with the love and the desire to talk about what I'm seeing that is so helpful, and that's enough. Doesn't matter if I'm a like middle class woman, white woman with an accent, and it doesn't matter anything if I'm not specialized in any criminology or psychology. I'm not this, I'm not that. That
You've no,
thing.
yeah, Linda Bellini is not on a brass plate somewhere with lots of numbers, lots of letters after it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I knew, I had the certainty that the little bit I saw was enough.
Yeah.
And so I started to go in and volunteer at first, and then Beyond the Cover expanded, and was what I've been working, and it's been the most rewarding and beautiful, meaningful.
And are you back
part.
in Winport Prison now again? Yeah.
Well, no, it's still with the lockdown. It's still.
Oh yeah, well yeah, but that's
Yeah,
it's that
yeah.
yeah. So you're back in the clinic that you set up all those years
Oh,
ago.
there. No,
Oh, yeah.
I
No,
never did
so,
go, but it was like that demographic, that population. Then I
yes.
had an amazing chance, and I just led with Alan Mildridge and Derek Mason. We just led the whole crime prevention program in Nottingham for young
Fantastic.
men, which they were to 18 to 25, knife crime prevention. And it was incredible what we saw, you know, and how just by seeing this simple truths, universal truth, it's and by willing to show up in whichever way with our own humanity and our own insecurities, we can make a big difference. So so that's kind of what led me here, to be honest, and how and why I love what I do so much, and I feel very blessed and always very honored to witness someone, you know, kind of waking up to their true selves, and connecting at that level is the most beautiful thing. And so of course it will have a ripple in my life, the relationship I have with my sons and my husband, with my friends. Everything is so much more real, and
it's truer, you know. I say this all the time when someone would, you know, if I was on a number of calls and someone would say, "But aren't you exhausted?" And I would say, well, it's a peculiar thing that two things happen. One is when I'm with a client, it's about quietening down. For me, that's all it's about. It's just about quietening down.
yeah.
And when I quieten down, I can hear what they're also not saying to me, you know, because it's in between the words, you know what I'm saying? And it's so incredibly restive just to listen to somebody without an agenda, just trusting that you hear what you need to hear, and the question will come when it needs to come. That's how I operate, and I love the simplicity of that. So I'm never tired from it.
No.
And the moment that somebody goes, "Oh, that's what you mean," you know, and the light just goes, and you know that's it. Our lives are never going to be the same. There are, and I get exactly what you're saying because for me, ultimately, that's just, there's something about somebody else just switching on. That's you just kind of go, you're in for a ride now. You know, you have no idea what's on the other side of this.
I know.
No idea what's in the other side. And it touches me every time. I'm moved. There is no time that I'm not moved by it. And it's funny, like we were talking about the wind up of the conference and about how Dr. Bill Pettit spoken about racism so beautifully, and Jan and Chip were on in, and they were talking about their relationship, and even in their 50-something years together, you know, they're still discovering things about each other. And I spent the last 2 hours of the conference crying, you know, it was so achingly beautiful. And my heart was just to listen to just the words with the intent of love. You know, and to me, one of the most joyous things has been this buzzing there now. My phone was ringing. Like the most joyous thing about it is that I'm allowed to feel all this stuff. I can feel all this stuff, you know, and I can be open to feeling sadness or feeling love or feeling joy or feeling anger or whatever in its fullest without ever being consumed by it or ever being overwhelmed by it. And there are times for all of us, like we are human beings, we should never forget this fact. Like you say, where we get cut off, we just do, you know. But the knowing that we can return to it.
Yes. That's massive, isn't it? It's massive. It makes that is the game changer, because I think somehow all those years I was looking for something that was going to guarantee somehow that I wouldn't feel everything, because I thought that some of those things in everything, those feelings were wrong, you know, they shouldn't be felt. And I had judgment, and I used to talk about surrendering, but it was all bullshit. Sorry, because nothing. It was all like such a good idea, but I wasn't very good at it. I surrendering to the whole thing. Now I have like almost respect and an appreciation that I sometimes, and that's inevitable, that I will feel, and that it will pass. You know, it's such a simple thing, but when I'm really feeling something deeply and it hurts, I know that it's gonna go. So I think, all right, hanging here, like I'm in a storm, you know, like, and it's cold, and suddenly it's dark, and so I'm feeling the whole storm, but I'm not getting lost in it, you know, and I kind of, have a sense that it's going to pass. So it's big difference, isn't it?
Huge. I remember, I think it was Sadhguru, I was listening to him talking, the Indian mystic, a man I have insane respect for. I'm a bit of a fanboy when it comes to him, because I love how he has, again, brought all that stuff off the side of a mountain into everyday wisdom. You know, even though he is the bearded wise man, he's very funny and very down to earth about how he approaches things. But this lady was talking to him, and she was asking him a question, and she was saying, but like last night I was so traumatized, and I just surrendered to it. And he said, no, he says, you didn't surrender to it. You wanted relief from who you were, which is an entirely different thing than surrendering to the pain and opening your heart to this is what's live right now. And allow, you know, he says, and when you surrender, it means you surrender it all. You step back, you allow it be what it is without ever losing yourself in it. You don't, then you recognize that you don't need relief. You don't need to. It's because there's a huge difference between kind of surrendering to get rid of your little psychological drama and actually surrendering.
Yes.
And he just spoke to how beautiful, and he just went, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense, because we're always looking for a bit of relief from the current situation, but that's when we're then looking to divert away from where we are.
And we can't, I love what you're saying, Billy, because we can't even surrender. We don't do the surrendering. We thought we could do the surrendering. That's why we tried. But we can't. The surrendering is not up to us. No. Isn't that like a relief? Because that was just something else that needed doing, the surrendering. Yeah. And instead is something inevitable that we are designed to fall into. And it seems like we can fall into even more quickly when we know what's really going on. at some level we know that. So
Yeah.
I remember I wrote a blog saying the letting go, how do we let go? Everybody wants to know how the effing we get to let go,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
letting go, letting go, letting
Yeah.
go.
Let it go. But let what go?
How does that effing work?
Yeah.
But I remember I was tidying up a cupboard and in pain, emotional pain. And at some point, I was tidying up the cupboard without emotional pain. And I had to stop. And I was blown away. And I had to stop. And I was in contemplation of my garden thinking, how did that happen? I want to know how that happened.
Yeah. Where is the formula now, please?
And then I remember thinking, I didn't do anything. It wasn't the tidying up of the cupboard. It's just like the design that I'm always talking about, by the way, whenever I do my talks. And is that design that kind of gets me to, and I come to rely on and to rest in the knowing that there is a design behind whatever I'm creating that takes care of things. I don't even have to preoccupy myself about letting go. And believe me, I always try. I always try when I'm in pain.
Well, we're drawn to it. Well, I'm less and less, I'll confess, I'm less and less drawn to it.
Yes.
Because because like you described so beautifully, a lot of us that come into the principles or into this type of work tend to come from a situation where we pretty much our life was gutted at some level, or psychological well-being or physical well-being, whatever. The damage was there. There was, and lots of times it looked like to us we were irretrievable. We just weren't. There was no way back from it. And to know this, and to be able to sit with somebody, and for me, at the start, it was all about trying to divert my thinking away. It was all about trying to find something. Now, meditation is beautiful. I love a good walk. I love a long bath. I say, hey, do these things. But the answer is not in them. The answer is in the understanding that it's okay to feel that way right now. It's actually just okay. And like while you were cleaning, I suspect there may have been a time, because I know it for me, when I would feel like shit, I'd take to the bed, as we would say here in Ireland. I'd just go and I'd lie down, and I'd wait for it to pass. So that could be 2 days, I'd literally get up, wash, eat, and go back to bed again. Mm-hmm. But the difference to surrendering it is that this is what's unfolding for me right now. I can still be living my life. Mm-hmm. I could still live with it because I know that what's going on is something that I have no control over.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And to allow it, and like I said, using the word surrender, but we surrender to rather than for something. Mm-hmm. Because if we go looking for it, it perpetuates. You're looking for a cure. You're back to looking for the cure all the time, looking for the diversion. Mm-hmm. And I love what you're saying, Lily, because we very much we're very similar now. We see this, So it's about the lads in the prison. I know Derek was one of Jacqueline's boys.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And what about the other lad that was with you? And is it Andrew? You said, was it?
Oh, that is Alan. Alan Mildridge is part of the Beyond Recovery team.
So you took 2 boys who were in prison with you, and you ran the program.
Oh, Alan wasn't. No, wasn't.
But he did the program.
Yes. He's been a volunteer, and he's been involved and worked for Beyond Recovery for a while. So we asked. Jacqueline asked me if I wanted to lead them. The knife crime prevention, because she knows that I have a passion for young adults, working with young adults. And I also have a passion for that demographics in terms of, I love to see that what I'm sharing and kind of that has changed my life is true for everyone. I love to see that. I buzz when I see there are no exceptions. You know, like, I knew it. So I took that on, and I was very grateful to have been given this opportunity. And so we traveled up to Nottingham and delivered it. It was 6 months, and they really loved it. We had amazing results, and a press release has been done and written about an amazing something that happened in one of these groups, and two rival gang members kind of dropping their, their thinking they had about each other, because they came from two different gangs that were rival, and there was an incident where one of the guys' best friend died, and because of the other one. So, and we didn't know that they were going to be on our group. Okay.
So you were the two guys, one from the rival gang, where one's gang had killed the best friend of the other gang.
Yeah. Okay. So you will see on Beyond Recovery's website, you will see the press release, and it was incredible what happened.
Can you talk about it? Can you tell us about it?
Yes, I'm sure I can.
I'd love to hear that.
Do you want me to?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear that, because that's the salt of it there.
Yes. Know? And so we had these two young men coming, and they were on this group. I think it was third group, maybe. I can't remember, but it was quite early in the program, and we didn't know. Checks usually are carried out to see gang affiliations, but they were on the same program and in the same room, and they didn't recognize each other. One did, the other one didn't, and they kind of, but then at some point it dropped. One came because he saw his brother transforming through one of our programs, of the undercover programs. And so he wanted to come and be also receive some of that and be impacted by that. And he desired, wanted to change his ways. So that's why he was there. The other one was just new, didn't know what we were about. And then at some point, one of them started to talk from what he'd seen about his brother, and he'd already kind of seen a bit through his brother. And so he was in that more listening place. And the other one, and then they recognized each other and they made that connection. But by then, they'd already seen enough about what we talk about that it didn't make sense to them to act out the gang thinking that they've lived in, and then they came back on the second day, and they saw more of each other beyond the gang thinking and the ideas and the rules that you have to, live by. And by the end of the 3 days, they were crying and they were hugging each other, and they recognized each other as one. And they were on the phone with the gang members saying, "Oh God, this thing that we're learning, we've got it." They saw the potential for change in a big way. Though.
That is life and death stuff we're talking about here. We're not just talking about a bun fight. We're talking about serious stuff here.
That's right. Yeah. So it was amazing, and you can read about this. It's a big, beautiful thing, because we've seen so many amazing things, but not much noise was made. They didn't end up in the press. They didn't. If they did, I often think if the world could be a fly on the wall, the whole world could be a fly on the wall on those programs. Because what we see is everything that we talk about kind of materializes in that space in such a profound, deep way, where you have a sense of what's possible. And it's not about, oh God, the world is a big place, how can we make a difference? You start thinking what's possible for one individual is possible for the whole world. This is a systemic, meaning that it can go everywhere. It has a ripple, and I think, especially with what's happening in the world now, which has been happening for centuries, okay? Different, it looks different, but it's still the same thing, especially what's happening now.
Yes, for sure.
I can't lie to you. I feel the hurt, of what's happening in the world. And the fact that I'm married to a black guy and I have black children doesn't make me, it's still not enough for me to appreciate how much pain there's been for black people, I'm still a white privileged woman, who's doing her best, who always comes from her heart, loves everyone, and doesn't have many filters where race is concerned. So I can go into that right now, but as a human being, I've been feeling the pain of what's happening, and I want to listen more to understand. I want, I want to listen to my husband more than I've ever listened before about him being black and what that means. I want to listen to my children. I love them. I don't, sometimes I see color, sometimes I don't see color. I see through color, and I embrace their culture. I'm like always celebrating diversities as a gift.
Yeah, totally by taking the clout.
And so I had to stop through this. This made me stop and wake up to a deeper kind of listening that I wasn't doing as a white privileged woman. Even if I witness racism in my own family, when we go through the airport, it takes us twice as long because, the black people in my family get stopped just because they're black. Or my sons was called all sorts of names, one of them specifically at school, from white kids. And I've always kind of thought, let's look in the direction of love and talk about that with them. So they did receive that, and that's beautiful. But right now, I just want with what's been happening, it humbled me and made me get humility and made me want to say, stop with your wise words and listen to whatever they need to say. And from that deeper listening that you were talking about, maybe I'll have a better sense of what I can do. But the listening for me, and it came to me like last week and 2 weeks ago, it blew me away. Because I thought I had been listening, but I hadn't. So I was crying because I thought maybe this doesn't seem like much, but it's what I can do, so that everything gets out and spoken about. And I'm not just brushing it over saying, we're all the same, which I 100% believe that we are in essence.
Spiritually, we're the same.
100%.
Spiritually, we're the same.
Yes.
But we're a unique expression of that
Exactly.
that spirituality.
So I know I got, this is big right now.
And very much so.
So when I with the work I've done in prisons, which it kind of inclusive of all races, and minorities and all that, and with what I witnessed, like the example of the 2 gang members, it's kind of, I know that that's the direction for me.
Yes.
To keep looking. And I also know that universal mind, has kind of said to me, listen more. You haven't listened.
Well, you see, it's the question that's that's in my mind to ask you, Lily, is this. You are a woman married to a black man. Your kids are black.
Mhm.
Now, to me, the average Joe, the average white Joe on this side of the conversation would say, but sure, white privilege isn't an issue for you. You know what I mean? You're married to a black man. Color is it's part of your life. Clearly, it's not an issue to you. And it leaves me begging the question, what do you mean, even at this stage with your husband, and your grown-up kids and stuff like that, where as you have thought it wasn't an issue, but yet somewhere in that you still felt.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what does that look like? Because I have to say, I kind of go, well, that doesn't make any sense to me, considering the circumstances of your life and
Yeah.
the actions and the love of a man that you share.
Yeah.
So where did Jesus was white privilege in that conversation? Do you know what I'm trying to say to you? That even after all of it, you could still see your white privilege in it.
I still see that I don't know what it's like. I might have, sometimes I made the assumption that because I embraced it so completely and so lovingly, I kind of had the sense of what it was like. And I know it's my own limitation and my own ignorance, if you wish, innocent ignorance.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And it comes from love, and of course, when I even saw my first son being born, and I looked at him, I thought, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And with those
you'd be naturally biased, of course, Mammy.
Yeah. But it never occurred to me, but that's not enough. It's not enough that it doesn't occur to me because I have only love for them. It's not enough. That's what I felt, the discomfort I felt when it all happened again. And that's my waking up. I was crying because of all the years that I thought somehow, stupidly, I thought it was enough for me to be so loving and open and so, and it is enough. But at the same time, I am right now, what comes through me and which feels true is like we need to listen in a different way, okay, to everything that is going on. Because if we listen, and there are different layers of listening, we listen to the content, we listen to the conflict, we listen to what's behind the conflict, we listen to the history of it all. And then there's more listening beyond that, which does not have any content, which has only love. No. But I wanted to listen to all the layers because I hadn't done it yet.
But because the layers are on top of it.
Exactly. And because we're human, let's not kid ourselves. Even if we know this understanding, we have this, we're still effing human. Mm-hmm. So we need to hear someone else's pain sometimes.
Agreed.
Especially if it's been going on for hundreds of years.
Agreed.
Yeah?
Yeah, totally.
We need to shut up and listen. And I wrote a post about it, and then I thought, I'm not really in touch with the universal love enough if I'm saying to myself, but that is universal mind, that's love telling me this is the most loving thing you can do right now for your husband, for your black children, for your community, for the world, is to stop and let them say what they need to say.
Exactly.
So maybe I can have a vague idea what it's like to be black. Vague idea. I'll never know, but maybe.
Liliana, this is the conclusion. As much as I can understand it, this is what I would feel exactly the same way. And as like I said to you before the call, those who those who need to listen the most are usually the ones that are shouting the most. Mm. We need to listen now.
Yeah.
We need to just slow everything down. And there are generations upon generations upon generations of heat poured on top of this. That even if Billy Mann has been completely not involved by the dirt of the color of my skin is enough not to understand what it is. And this is what I found, like I said to you, this is what I found so powerful about what Dr. Bill said about his friend George.
Me too.
And I cried listening to it, because George said there was never a morning where, to paraphrase it, where he woke up and didn't wonder what issue his skin was going to raise today. And Bill says, I'm 78 years of age, and I have never woken up and wondered what issue my skin is going to raise today. And it just literally, it blew me open to the point that I cannot understand this. The only thing that I know, and I said this before we started this call, the only thing that I know to be sure about this is the only way we know we've got this healed is when another human being can wake up inside in their bed in the morning and their first thought of the day isn't, I wonder what issue the color of my skin is going to bring up today. That must be the end point in all of this conversation. Where every human being feels safe. That's it, period. That's it. And we can only do that by allowing this situation its natural breath to be heard. And allow generations of misunderstanding to be finally spoken out. Without us feeling the need, as a middle-aged man or my kids, feeling the need to justify our whiteness in it, because that's only trying to make us feel something. The best we can do is just shut up and let them speak it out. Let us understand at a deeper level.
I love what you're saying, and I have a lot to learn from the guys on the Beyond Recovery. Who have come out, and now they're on the Beyond Recovery team, and they did something amazing at the conference, speaking about this from their perspective. And 1, 2, 3, 4 of them were black and one white. And I need to listen to them, because they are teaching me something that I'm not necessarily seeing clearly about this. And I'm so glad that they're out there talking about this from their perspective, because they're seeing love everywhere. Okay, they're not, and they are the ones with the black skin, or with the record, and the sentence, or whatever they served, and their histories and stuff. And they're still, because they've seen enough of this that we are talking about, they're able to drop into a place of a level of consciousness that is so expansive about this, because I can get quite narrow, I can get quite personal, and they brought something spectacular at the conference about this. So I'm still kind of thinking, I don't like this, and what can I do? I better listen. They've gone past that. So and they share it beautifully, and they bring the very essence and the simplicity of what we talk about, even about the racial issues and stuff like that. So I want to encourage everyone to listen to them, and to also, I'm always open to explore this and to learn more and to gain more humility about this, because I just want to get quiet and hear beyond my ideas that I had and I have lived in, which were nice, there was nothing racist about my ideas, but there is more. There is more I can learn.
The depth of your understanding.
That's it. That's it. So that it can free me, but it can free the world. True change and freedom comes from seeing this few very simple things. And
it boils it down to its most pragmatic. We do want. There's quite an spiritual and expansive nature to the conversation that can happen.
Yes.
But I so prefer this kind of a conversation.
Yes.
Where it's nuts and bolts. It's nuts and bolts stuff. This is like really, this is what's happening in the world. And we can get lost in the spiritual language of it too, and that creates its own narrative, and we get lost in that as well. But it's wonderful to, you know, to see these guys who are former prisoners, guys with records, guys who are black, like you say, black and with a criminal record and prison time. You know, I mean, all the major, you know, fuck up boxes ticked, you know what I mean? And like you say, a couple didn't. But yet, these guys can hear something so simple and so profound within them.
Yes.
That it no longer is an issue to them.
Yes, 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 yes.
And that's pragmatic, nuts and
Yes.
bolts. The impact of that is clear across their life.
That's right. It's, you know, and that's the beauty of it all. You know, it's not a theory, it's not a fluffy kind of idea. It's like the truth. And it just takes care of the fluff. And then when it comes through us, in whichever way it does, it's heard. So,
yes. And that's so powerful.
Yeah.
That's to me is the truth. Like I said to you at the start of this, what's true for us right now is perhaps the most powerful thing, because we're hearing it in our life, and we're hearing it in our work, and we're hearing it in our families and the clients that we work with in the prisons, you know, that you work in and stuff like that. It's live. We're living it.
Yes.
It isn't, you know, I mean, it isn't a theory for us. And it's amazing. I see this all the time. I see this and the instantaneous, you know, you deal. I mean, I'm dealing with one client that I suppose we're looking at the bones of almost 30 years from our teenage years, which are quite traumatic, you know, in the early teenage years. And she carried a lot of all of this angst and pain and stuff. And when we started working together, I mean, like she cried and 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 cried, and I just left her cry. Hour after hour after hour after hour after hour, until she was able to take a breath. And then we began to speak about it. And in 4, maybe 5 short weeks after all of that, we're now talking about awareness. 20, 30 years now almost, and she said, extraordinary amounts of therapy and medication and self-medication and all of that stuff. But really all she needed to be was heard. Just needed to be heard, but at a level that understood that she was okay. That she didn't need to be fixed, but it's okay to experience that pain now. Let's just let it bring it to the top and experience it, and then we'd have little conversations, and that was it. That's all I was doing for about 5, 6 weeks.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then the moment, and it just all started to shift all by itself. I did nothing other than be there in the space with her and to say, look, you are actually okay. You are actually okay. And one of the most rewarding things, she says it to me, she said, the moment that you said to me that it was, you know, it's okay to feel everything. There's no feelings because we're equipped with every single feeling. So at some stage they're going to show up. So it's okay to feel every one of them, you know, because they're part of the system. And I said, and stuff is going to always flush through. But you don't need to be enlightened. You just, it's okay to be okay with life. It's okay to be okay with that stuff. It's okay not to have, you know, it's the fantasy of wanting something else all of the time. And we realized, oh my God, I don't have to have any of that stuff. And I don't need to be doing this to be this, that I'm actually all the pressure, all the expectations. And it's now gone the other way because things have really taken off in 5, 6 weeks of our life. It's gone, you know, and literally it's like the psychological handbrake is off. And this is how it shows up as with my experience, that the less, as we talk about, that we have in our minds, and the more we see through those stories that we've been telling ourselves, even though we say slow down, we're not talking about slowing down in life, we're talking about slowing down to the speed of life, as Joe Bailey would say, up here. that we're not swept up in, overthought. We're not swept up in anxiousness. We're not swept up in thinking. We just know it happens sometimes. And it doesn't tell us who we are. It doesn't dictate the pace of who we are in life. And we're okay. I mean, like, where do you go with that? Like, I mean, how easy is that particular thing when you understand it?
Exactly.
It looks so, and I was saying to one client,
when you understand it,
because no, you've never heard a problem like mine. Mine is complex. There's so many strands to pull in, and my problem is complex. So the complex mind is always looking for a complex solution.
Of course. Beautiful.
And
God.
Did you love just untangling that and kind of going, it's never that easy, but actually it is that easy. Sometimes, isn't it? Now, Liliana, I told you at the start of this particular conversation, we're at it an hour and 1 minute. We're at 61 minutes. And that's what I told you, at the start of this. I have failed miserably to keep it into 30 minutes.
Well, it's been such a joy. I can't tell you. You cured me. But from speaking phobia, of course it was a thing. I'm kidding, but it feels like I've been cured, and I can't tell you how grateful I am for this conversation. This has been beautiful. Honest to God, it's been such a treat. And I am very grateful that you invited me into this space.
I'm delighted you accepted my offer.
No. You keep doing what you're doing, Billy. It's special. I think we need a space like this, more spaces like this, where we can show up and be, and there is a natural, informal kind of barbecue feeling.
Barbecues.
hanging out
Yes.
together feeling, rather than you know more, I know more, we know you who knows more, and who has seen more. And it's because we all have this, we all have it, and we can together we can explore and see more.
Yes. I said this to somebody recently. A coach from America reached out to me about something, and she was talking about these, and the truth is the rising tide will lift all boats, and we are the rising tide. That's how I see it. Yeah. We are the rising tide.
The glimpse we've had about the principle is rising the tide, isn't it?
Yeah, and the rising tide will lift all boats.
And we're lifting with it.
Yes.
And
those around us, like you say, the ripple outwards. The metaphor is the ripple outwards. Is that those around us feel it too?
Absolutely.
Those around us feel it too. Liliana, I want you to hold on for a second. I'll just say goodbye to everybody. Liliana, before you go anywhere, thank you so much. That was really genuinely hand and heart special. I am so glad I finally got to catch up with you and have a chat.
Gorgeous.
And I think it's the beginning of a lifelong friendship.
Absolutely.
It's the beginning of a lifelong friendship.
Absolutely.
I'm grateful for your wisdom, and I'm grateful for your passion, and that, and the unique expression you are of this. The unique expression you are of this. It's so clear from having all these conversations with so many amazing people that we are all the unique expression of one thing. It never gets boring to have this conversation. It just doesn't get boring.
No.
Because we're all bringing the uniqueness, and this is who we are. This is why it's so important that we're free to express this understanding through the uniqueness of who we are. This is what makes it so special, because we're talking about exactly the same thing, but how it shows up through us. And every time I have that conversation, Liliana, I am blown away by it. It's insanely rewarding for me, and nonetheless today was just so beautiful. I really appreciate it.
Same. All that right back at you.
Fair enough.
All of that.
Just hold for 1 second. To everybody else, thank you all so much for joining us. I have been on Zoom here, so I have no idea what Facebook is, what's up on Facebook. I'll get back to you. Anybody that has questions or comments afterwards, I will comment on them. Thank you all so much for joining us. I have another live on Thursday, and I'll publish the details of that. In the meantime, be well, lovers,
Beautiful.
and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.